Uh, 68,000 Jews before the war. Thousands of them were taken out of the city immediately in the first year of occupation, and they were actually mostly relocated to suburban areas around Krakow or already to the labor camps located and created by the Germans in eastern parts of Poland. So that meant that here in the city only about 18,000 Jews left here, and they were all taken from the Jewish quarter on the other side and transported, or and they had to actually walk the way down for themselves, or being transported from the Jewish quarter to this place, to this former city of Podgórze. And here the ghetto was created. In 1941, all this area around us was walled, and it was inhabited by about 3,000 people before the war. And then during the war, 18,000 were put inside, so it's completely overcrowded. You could live with, for example, in any of these apartments, in these old houses, with, let's say, 20 people that you didn't know at all. Not your family, nobody that you know, that you didn't know. We have to know that Jewish community before Second World War was not very monolithic, I would say. There were many groups of Jews here. Some who were assimilated to the Polish culture to the extent that they didn't know any Jewish word, for example. Some of them were still completely Orthodox. They didn't know a word of Polish. They were all put together here. It was all very. This could also create many conflicts here within the ghetto walls. Anyway, the ghetto was closed, and there was no way inside, in or out, just like this, apart from two things actually. First, you can see the tram line over here, right? There's a tram line, there's a tram stop as well. During the war, this tram line was here, but there was no tram stop. And sometimes people from the rest of the world, mostly Polish people, wanted to help those here inside by throwing out some pieces of food, potato, bread, or so. Of course, punishment for helping Jews here in Poland was actually the harshest in Europe. You have to remember, if you were spotted helping a Jew here, you would basically it was meaning death for you and all of your family and all of your associates. Just a spot like this. So basically, sometimes there were some brave people who wanted to do that, and there was a situation that sometimes all this tram was executed for helping here, just like this. Then the second way of getting something from the outside world was an embassy of the free world created here by the Polish pharmacist who was called Tadeusz Pankiewicz. Here, at the corner, you got this building here on the right corner, right? This is a museum right now. Museum of Pharmacy and the Epidemic, we call it, where this guy, Tadeusz Pankiewicz, decided to stay. He was a pharmacist here before the war, and during the ghetto times, he didn't want to leave this place. That was actually the only pharmacy in any of the ghettos created by the Nazis all around Europe that was run not by a Jewish person, but by exactly somebody else. Here, in this case, by the Polish pharmacist Tadeusz Pankiewicz. He stayed inside. He tried to, as he was the only one who was granted the access. He could go and inside or outside the ghetto anytime he wanted. He was able, for example, to smuggle priceless scrolls of Torah from the inside of the ghetto to the outside world. That's why we still have them to be seen, for example, in the Historical Museum of Krakow. Then he was also bringing information from the outside world. He was giving away free medicine here in secret as well. Basically, he was also responsible for our knowledge about the ghetto times, as he's written his diaries, his memoirs, in 1947, just after the Second World War ended. So basically, he still got some very fresh memories. He's one of those who are called righteous amongst the nations. During Second World War, there were good and bad people, of course. Some of them were heroic to this extent that they tried to save here Jewish people. Actually, there are 24 around right now, 24,000 of people who are listed by the institute in Yad Vashem Institute in Jerusalem as so-called righteous amongst the nations. Those help Jewish people here in Europe. 24,000, about almost 7,000 of them are Polish. This is the biggest group actually by far, and one of them is Tadeusz Pankiewicz. Also, Oskar Schindler is known as one of the righteous amongst the nations. About him, we're going to talk in a minute. When we're going to finish the tour just in front of Schindler's factory. As far as the ghetto goes here, one more thing. The ghetto was liquidated in the year 1943. Most of the people from here were taken out to either Auschwitz itself, Leushes, that is yet another concentration camp located right now. Well, it is not there because it was destroyed in the end by the German army, but the place is located in eastern Poland right now. And also the third place, which is the concentration camp here in Krakow, only about 2 kilometers away from here. In that direction, there's a place where formerly a concentration camp called Płaszów used to stand, and the gas chambers were never constructed there. There was a plan to do that, it was just not enough time. Anyway, most of the people from here, from the ghetto, were taken out and were transported to those concentration camps. About 2,000 were killed here on spot during that action, this final kind of solution, final liquidation of the ghetto. Those 2,000 were mostly elderly, women and children. And sometimes there happened such situation that is described by Tadeusz Pankiewicz himself, that people were just put in a row, for example, in 3 or 4 in a row, and they were just shot with 1 bullet to save those bullets, because that was already the time, 1943, when German army started to lose the war, so they needed as many arms, supplies and so as they needed. So to save them, they sometimes did such things. Those soldiers ordered to do that. So pretty much undescribable reality and cruelty. Anyway, the ghetto was liquidated, and now we come to the thing that you can see here, these chairs, as you can see. Just before the liquidation of the ghetto, many Jewish people that were living here wanted to save some of their money and jewelry. Well, for example, banknotes. That's why they were putting those banknotes in the wooden structures of these pieces of furniture, like tables and chairs. And then they believed they could come back after the war and reclaim their lost property like that. That was not to be. All of them were actually taken from here, and most of them have died during the Holocaust. And after they were taken, well, the Nazi soldiers, usually the SS men, searched through all these pieces of furniture, and then afterwards, well, basically all this area is completely empty, and only these pieces, well, chairs, tables, wardrobes, and so were put here in the center of the ghetto, of the main square of the ghetto. As the last earthly possessions of those people who used to live here, they are right now celebrated here through this monument, as you can see, just leaving this visible mark of the presence of those people who used to live here for centuries, actually. And then, right now, as you see, they're almost gone. But I really hope it's not the end of story. Right now, let's go from here to the place where one small bit of the former ghetto wall still stands, and then I'm going to tell you some stories about survivors from the ghetto times. Some of you, actually, one of those survivors is very much known to general public. I think most of you have heard about this guy. If you want to know who this is, just follow me to the penultimate stop of our tour, short stop at this ghetto wall, and then Schindler's Factory, the end of our tour.